if we want to break the back of this in the weeks before the end of the flu season, then social distancing is really the most effective measure. And Americans, I think, are largely ready to do this by and large. We see state and local governments standing up to this. And with the United States, what the president did is he announced measures which are going to be impactful today. They're going to, right now, help people deal with this. And I think that's important.
It always seems like the bigger companies or those with the big lobbying forces, they're the ones that are able to get the bailouts and the release. We have a relief. We have a better proposal for that as well. Instead of bailing out individual companies to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars, why don't we go ahead and allow companies to apply any losses that they have over the next few quarters, apply them to past quarters where they had a profit, and you can go ahead and get an immediate refund for those taxes that you paid on those profits. It's very similar to what we already have in place in the tax code. You can roll losses forward. Let's roll those losses backwards.
I think what would be much more effective from a public health policy standpoint is if you had hotspots where there's a significant number of people infected, having those people self-quarantine and remain in their community, it makes sense. Stopping travel, since it's not, it'd be very difficult in the United States in a sense to keep people from going from one place to another. Even if you stopped domestic flights, people can still drive wherever they want. If you wanted to stop people at the state line, that would absorb an enormous amount of resources. So I think the focus ought to be on what's the most efficacious way to prevent this, and it's social distancing, and voluntary social distancing really is the most effective tactic. Well, I think if you look at the countries that have already suffered kind of the first wave of the virus, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, how did they come out of this? And the answer is they flattened the curve. In other words, they limited the spread of the virus. That's the single most important thing. And I would argue it was largely done by social distancing. And now if you look at what they're doing is they're trying to prevent reinfections by people coming back into the country, so the travel restrictions are really important. It's the fastest way to get out of the back of this. I know people are very uncertain about the future and where things hold, but we have a good lesson that you can get ahead of this if you stop the spread of the infection. And if you want to get back to normal economic activity, go to Disney World, do everything else. The number one thing all Americans can do is help break the back of the spread of the disease right now.
What the virus impact has demonstrated is the importance really of nation states. So the supranational European Union has looked increasingly irrelevant with regard to the whole crisis situation in Europe. You now have European governments who are taking center stage in terms of action dealing with the virus. And without a doubt, I think you have the entire sort of European project, this idea of a heavily centralized, practically European superstate, I think practically coming to an end before our eyes at this time.